Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Walker with NACE. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, University Recruiting's Hidden Hero, How AI Can Open Up Budget for More People-First Investments. Throughout today's webinar, we do encourage you to actively participate in the chat, and please post any questions you may have in the Q&A. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce Kate Beckman, Director, Community and Insights at RippleMatch, and Tucker Frost, Head of Product at RippleMatch. Go ahead and take it away, Kate and Tucker.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our topic today, where we're going to be talking about how AI can really help you streamline your processes and open up budget to really focus on what recruitment does best, which is forming those relationships, investing in your people. Really excited to see everyone here today. Feel free to say hello and introduce yourself in the chat. I'll kick things off with an introduction. As mentioned, I'm the Director of Community and Insights here at RippleMatch. I'm responsible for all of our educational programming, research on Gen Z and talent trends. I'm excited to be a presenter today, and I'll hand it over to my team member, Tucker, who will also be sharing more information about AI and how it can be best implemented into your strategies.
All right, thank you, Kate. As Kate mentioned, I'm Tucker. I'm the head of product here at RippleMatch, calling in from our New York office today. And I've been here at RippleMatch since 2018, when we were just getting started as a hiring platform that really from the ground up was looking at how we could use AI to expand access to opportunity to candidates looking to kick off their careers, as well as making it easier for companies to hire the absolute best talent for them, no matter where it was located in the country. And that's something that everyone here at RippleMatch has been super sort of inspired about, and the reason why we kind of do the work that we do. And we're really excited that this is a topic that's generating increasing interest in general in the space, as there's been more and more knowledge and understanding about sort of AI and its applications in hiring. So really excited to be able to share some of that and how we've approached it. And I've been thinking about it for a few years in this conversation today as well.
Awesome. Well, excited to hear all the things you have to say as well. Taking a look at our agenda today, what we're going to be going over, we're going to share a bit about the evolving recruitment landscape. As we talk about new technology, there's obviously been a rapid transformation. So we want to just go back in time a little bit and kind of set the tone of what has evolved so far and how we got to where we are. Then we're going to talk a bit about AI and recruitment, who's actually using it. So sharing some of our latest stats, looking at AI tools, those problems it can solve for university recruitment teams and how that can help free up your time and budget, and then take a look at some real life applications. So how teams are using this to really speed up some of those manual processes, automate their approach to recruitment, to really spend more time on the things that, again, really are great to invest in university recruitment. Before we do that, just a quick about RippleMatch. If you're not too familiar with what we do, we are the recruitment platform that works for you. So we are an AI-powered solution for all of your early career recruiting needs, and we power your team to really reduce spend, eliminate manual tasks, and transform the candidate experience to give faster response times and build more intentional connections. Another thing that I wanted to share, as mentioned, we host a ton of events at RippleMatch, and we're always fostering community among the university recruitment folks, as well as career services. And we're excited to host our 2024 virtual conference. It's a Spark conference. It's focused all about how folks are really sparking the careers of the next generation of talent. We're shining a spotlight on all of those leading strategies. We'll have a panel of Gen Z candidates, expert presentations from university recruitment leaders, community discussions. So definitely go ahead and scan this QR code if you are interested in signing up. Tickets are free, so definitely recommend signing up through this QR code. It's free for the first 1,000 registrants. So scan this QR code, take a look at some of the scheduling, and if you're interested, definitely sign up, and hopefully we'll see you in October for this virtual conference. All right, so moving into today's topic, before we talk about AI and how it can help your recruitment processes, I'd love to take a step back and look at the shifting landscape and really how we got to where we are. Because as we might recall, in the past 5+ years, there's been so much new technology, new adaptations to strategies, a big current event that happened as well. So there's been a lot to adapt to, and it's really easy to get whiplash. And as we talk about AI, it can be difficult to understand what you should adopt and what's a passing trend. So I want to just take a look at how things have shifted over the years. So first, let's take a look at the pre-pandemic status quo. As we might recall, prior to the pandemic, so about 10 years ago almost, campus recruitment was very focused on physically going to those campuses. We had Gen Z just entering the job market. They were also entering a very strong job market. So it was pretty competitive. They were able to command higher salaries. We also had a really big prioritization of D&I. We had our customers, they were early adopters of AI-driven matching technology, but job boards or school-specific job boards, so career services, having job boards or, the standard job boards, they're definitely the status quo technology. There's not as much innovation in both campus recruitment strategy or technology. Now, when we got to the pandemic, there was obviously that massive immediate shift to online recruitment and online work. There was uncertainty and drawbacks on some early recruitment programs. There was also a renewed focus on D&I and building inclusive cultures and pipelines, as we might recall. So around this time, there was an embrace of new technology to take internships virtual, to take remote work online, to recruit virtually. So there was definitely an embrace of innovation really that was forced upon us, but there was definitely that embrace as we adjusted to that new normal. As we got into 2021 to mid 2022, there was that early career boom. So the candidate-driven market, we found that companies that maybe had paused hiring were now facing huge pent-up demand, and they had to make a lot of effort to recruit early career candidates to just generally recruit a lot higher numbers. And we saw that companies prioritized budgets, new technology. There was an openness to embrace new technologies, to try virtual strategies, to really increase innovation when it comes to virtual recruitment. So there wasn't that same need to go to campus because obviously we could not recruit in person as the same way that we were. So there was this new challenge of navigating new technologies. There were some strategic returns to in person. There's also navigating the new challenges of remote first interns, new hires. But overall, we saw in this early career boom that continued embrace of technology that power virtual strategies. As we see, there is that new landscape once again. Around mid 2022, the economy shifted once again, and we saw a bit of a drawback, a more conservative approach to adopting new tools toward growing university recruitment programs. We saw companies had to make cuts or adjustments to their early career teams in the face of economic challenges. Companies settled into hybrid recruitment strategies. They're now figuring out what is the best way to approach recruitment, the best of virtual, the best of in person. But a huge change and a huge new thing in technology is the implementation of AI. So ChatGPT came on the scene around the end of 2022. And while AI technology has been used for years, especially in consumer technology, you might have already been using from, Uber to Netflix to all of these recommendation things, as well as, in recruitment technology, ChatGPT was this introduction of AI technology that felt very accessible, that you are talking to something online and it's able to come up with emails and stories and long paragraphs. So it felt different, and it was definitely bringing AI into the mainstream. So these capabilities really transformed recruitment to allow it to become more efficient. These advancements in AI definitely are making it more accessible, but it's something to really adjust to. So now we're facing new red tape from our companies. We're facing different regulations. We're trying to figure out how do we once again adapt to a new landscape and use this to the best of our ability. So we're not just putting in new technology for the sake of it, but really using it strategically to free up our time, to free up our resources, and focus again on those important things like building candidate relationships, making strategic decisions. So as mentioned, these shifts, it's been constantly shifting in the last 5 years, and it is really easy to get whiplash because there's just been so much new strategies, new things to adapt to. So now that we've set the tone for that, let's take a closer look at AI and this massive shift in more detail to really understand of how it can be implemented into your processes to save you time, money, and free you up to make those more strategic decisions and things that can build stronger relationships and brand for your company. So AI in recruitment, let's take a look at who is currently using it. We recently ran a survey of both candidates on our platform, a little over 1,000, to understand how they're approaching their job search, but also how they're using AI. And we also have some data that we ran of a survey of recruiters, about 75 in August as well, to understand how they're using it. So let's take a quick look at how AI is showing up in job searches today. So we see that candidates are definitely adopting AI really in high numbers for their fall job search. So we asked Are you using or do you plan to use AI to assist with your job or internship? And 68% of candidates say that they are planning to use AI or they're already using it for their job search. So it's a pretty large share of candidates that are fully embracing AI when it comes to their search. In terms of how they're using it, we see that the most popular way candidates are using it is actually tailoring their resume, streamlining communication. So we see here more than half of candidates are leveraging ChatGPT to tailor their resume or cover letter for a particular role. 45% are leveraging it to help proofread or improve email communication with recruiters. 30% are using it to conduct mock interviews. About 20% are using it to help during assessments, help with assessments during the hiring process. So that's something to be aware of, that while it's not a majority of candidates that are using it for in hiring assessments, there are a share of candidates that are using it. So the main ways candidates are using it currently is to help really streamline that written communication. So just something to be aware of with how many candidates are using it, just as you're receiving applications, designing assessments, and interviews. Now, in terms of recruiters, how often are they using AI? We see that 48% are actually using AI tools at least once a week. So we see about a quarter are using it only occasionally when testing out new tools, but about half are saying that they're using it once a week or even more. If you add up 1 to 2 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week, and every day. So we're definitely seeing there's adoption in AI as folks are figuring out which tools are best to use in their process. So now when we look at what tools they're actually using, in our survey, we also asked qualitatively, what kind of tools are you using in your search? And from that information, we are laying out some of the tools that we do see commonly used, some of the ways that folks are using AI. So let's take a look at how some of these tools are showing up just in folks' recruitment process overall, just in their everyday work. And first, we'll talk about the problem. So again, when I talk about how it's showing up in folks' everyday work, we need to look at what problems they're trying to solve it for. So one way that we're seeing folks are using AI is to deal with the high volume approach to recruitment. So again, this candidate data that we're seeing, 71% are submitting at least 100 applications. So we'll see in the coming slides, folks are going to be using AI to really sort through high volumes of applications. Another way, as you can see here, candidates are heavily online when they're approaching their job search. So recruiters are definitely using online methods as well. But candidates, as you can see here, 77%, they're using job boards to apply for roles. So on the back end, we're candidates, they're submitting hundreds of applications. So recruiters on the back end, they have to figure out a way to sort through those applications. Because candidates are so heavily online in their job search, recruiters are also finding ways to meet that volume and meet candidates where they're at. Another just kind of quick information here, as we know that recruiters, we'll see this a bit later, they're using ChatGPT to help with job descriptions. And a big reason for that is because candidates today are most likely to just read the entire job description, but not do a lot of additional research when they are actually going through that process. So we ask candidates, at what stage of your internship search do you read the entire job description? 70% say that they read this before applying. But when it comes to conducting additional information on a company to determine if they're interested in working there, only 30% of candidates are really reading beyond the job description. So as we'll see when we talk about specific technologies, job descriptions are a really big part that recruiters need to be efficient and streamlined at creating to most effectively reach candidates, as this is a big part of how candidates are approaching their job search and what they're reading. Another problem that recruiters are solving through AI is really candidate expectations. So candidates today expect to hear back from their job search within 5 to 7 days. So we ask candidates after submitting an application, how quickly do you expect to hear back? Or after completing a first round interview, completing assessments, and it's consistently 5 to 7 business days. So candidates have really high expectations when it comes to actually hearing back from recruiters. And so as we'll see with some of that technology, a big thing that needs to be solved with just more efficient technology is, how do you get back to candidates so quickly to really meet their expectations? As we saw, another big challenge is applicant volume. So we'll see again that technology is really going toward, how do you sort through high applications? How do you find the time to assess ROI and craft high-level strategy? These are big challenges for lean teams, and it's something that we saw that AI is really showing up as a way to help this. So sorting through high applicant volume can really be helped by automating your processes. And if you can free up a lot of the coordination, the manual tasks, you'll actually have more time to assess ROI and take that time to craft high-level strategy to make really big improvements on your candidate experience and to forge those stronger connections. So as just an example, before we dive into the specific technology, it's really become a necessity for employers to adapt to those market conditions. Candidate behaviors are changing. We're seeing really high volume of applications that they're submitting. Leaner teams are stretched thin. Early career budgets are tighter than ever. And so that's why we're really seeing, and this is the slides that we're going to go over next, the kinds of technology showing up that we're seeing is recruiters are turning to AI to find ways to automate their manual processes, such as going through applicants, to make writing job descriptions a lot more impactful and effective, given that Gen Z is really reading those as their main source of research, and finding ways to decrease the need to go to different conferences or different events to really make the most of the budget that they have. So moving to those specific AI tools, as we mentioned, we took a look at some of the big challenges that are being caused by candidate behavior today. And these are some of the ways and tools that are showing up, shared by recruiters as how they're using AI. So AI tools are really defined as single function applications that are meant to assist with specific tasks during the recruitment process, whereas AI-powered platforms are comprehensive solutions that integrate multiple AI functionalities and they manage the entire recruitment process end to end. So AI can streamline administrative tasks, freeing up time for strategic work. As we mentioned, it's a big challenge of lean teams to actually find that time to assess ROI and craft strategic strategies. We also see that it can enhance candidate engagement through personalized interactions. We see candidates want to hear back within 5 to 7 business days. They want to stay in the loop about what's happening. That can be really challenging to do fully manual. And team bandwidth during peak recruitment methods. So as we know, teams have really, not necessarily grown in size, but the demands on these teams have either stayed the same or grown. So finding a way and a tool that can really support you and expand during your peak times, and then it's not the same as hiring necessarily another team member. So that's a big part of how AI is helpful for teams. Looking at some of the specific tools now, looking at AI for enhanced candidate communication. So as I mentioned, as we saw in the data, one of the challenges is that candidates today are really mainly just reading a job description. They're not doing a lot of additional research before applying. So a big thing that is important is making sure that job description is really impactful. It reflects what your company does. It's saying that information that's most important for candidates, and that is also free from bias. We also know that candidates care a lot about hearing back from you quickly, staying in the loop. So AI for enhanced candidate communication is a big way that folks are leveraging AI to ensure timely, tailored interaction with candidates, to craft candidate communication, so personalized email templates, to handle questions, guide candidates through that application process so they really know what to expect in the process. As mentioned, building upon this candidate communication, job descriptions are a very important part of the Gen Z candidate experience and how you can better connect with this generation. Writing job descriptions or figuring out the best way to make your job description pack the most punch. It's not always easy, especially as a recruiter, writing a lot of variations of job descriptions to find the very best one can be pretty time consuming. So folks are turning to different tools like ChatGPT or Textio, for example, was mentioned, that can really write inclusive job descriptions, that can create engaging job descriptions to attract diverse candidates, give AI-powered suggestions, so analyzing and improving language to promote inclusivity and broaden appeal. Make sure your job descriptions are bias-free, because again, as we saw from that information, candidates are really looking at job descriptions and they're not looking at your entire company website necessarily or doing a ton of additional research before deciding if they want to apply for your company. Another big thing, as we mentioned, as we saw from those slides about the challenges and why folks are turning to these AI tools, applicant volume is a big issue. We see that candidates are submitting 100 plus applications in their search. We also do see that those expectations for how quickly you'll get back to them are very high. So we'll talk about this a little bit later in terms of how Ripple Match specifically helps with applicant review and sourcing. But some ways folks are turning to this to help solve those problems we mentioned is candidate filtering. So being able to identify your best fit candidates early on so you can get back to them quicker, as well as sort through that application volume without manually going through hundreds and hundreds of applications. And that definitely allows you to either bulk reject folks or just advance candidates quicker. And then automating sourcing, again, even if you might be getting a ton of high volume, it might not necessarily be the right volume. So platforms that can help you automate sourcing can help you connect with a more intentional talent pool that will help you achieve your recruiting goals. As mentioned, candidate engagement is another big way that folks are leveraging AI. With the high volume comes a ton of outreach questions about, when is the interview? What is the typical process like? How long can I expect to hear back? And so these kinds of tools that can help with candidate engagement and help, automate some of those requests coming in is a big way to improve your candidate experience and really make it so you're not bogged down with repetitive requests. So there's a number of AI tools. This is one example that was mentioned in our survey that can help you connect with top talent via chat-based tools and answer some of those frequent questions that come up. Another one is streamlining interview process. So again, as we saw with some of those challenges, candidates expect to keep moving forward within 5 to 7 days. And some of the interview logistics can be pretty time consuming. So after an interview, trying to go through all of this information, transcribe your notes and figuring out what is the main takeaways, as well as the logistics themselves, such as scheduling, coordinating between candidates and interviews. There's a lot of manual work that you can really get bogged down by that can keep you from actually thinking about how can we provide the best experience for candidates? How can we bring in more folks from our organization to talk about why our culture is great? So AI can really streamline parts of the interview process that are taking up valuable parts of time just from your team or getting you bogged down from manual tasks. So generally, the broader advantages of AI-powered recruitment, and as we saw from some of those challenges, saving time and reducing operational costs is really important in this day and age when you're getting on average 100 plus applications per candidate. They're really just approaching their job search from a high volume perspective, but they also simultaneously have these really high expectations that they'll get back to you within 3 to 5 business days, 5 to 7 business days. So we really are needing to find solutions that are saving time so you can get back to these candidates, you can create a better candidate experience, you can focus on how do you build better candidate relationships? What can you do strategically to improve your employer brand among Gen Z candidates? How can you expand team bandwidth during peak recruitment periods? Because you might not necessarily be able to hire a new team member when activity really spikes, which we know in campus recruitment, fall is really busy and you need a tool that can expand with you. So we're going to go over just now some ways that Ripple Match can actually help with this process. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of different challenges and the technologies mentioned were coming as a result of those challenges that we identified. So I'd love to take a more real life look at how this is showing up in an AI tool like Ripple Match and how real university recruitment teams in the space are actually leveraging AI to solve some of these challenges mentioned. So Tucker, I'll hand it over to you and we can go over some of these real life examples.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate, for that great overview and really interesting data on sort of the candidate experience and where both candidates and recruiters are applying AI today. And this is, as I mentioned, a topic that is very near and dear to our heart here at Ripple Match. We were really founded back in 2016 when the common terminology was really machine learning, and when there was sort of the advance that was really seen at that time period was the ability to take algorithms that had actually been established in some cases decades before, but actually productionize them and implement them in really large data sets. And that really kind of changed in the mid 2010s. And we really saw the opportunity there. And especially we'll talk a little bit about how we've implemented in our platform, but that is something that has sort of driven us since the very beginning. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, we'll chat a little bit about how we built our platform with AI from the ground up. And the sort of key aspect of our kind of system and focus is we've from the very beginning, been focused on kind of that problem of how opportunity is distributed. So from the candidate experience side, if you are a college student graduating for the first time and experiencing your first ever job search, how do you understand what kind of jobs exist in the world, what you could be qualified for, and actually find those positions effectively at scale? And that's something that a lot of the data that Kate went through just now really shows is something that's really, really challenging for people to do manually. It's really difficult for them to navigate sort of the universe of data out there, find the right opportunity successfully. And that's why they have a really challenging experience or submitting hundreds of applications and usually having around a 2% success rate and actually getting into the interview process, which is a really huge challenge, both as just the sort of wasted effort, but also can be really discouraging and difficult for underrepresented candidates, first-gen candidates, and candidates who are attending schools that don't have that kind of really strong network and prestige already to get their foot in the door at really great companies. And then on the employer side, it's really challenging for customers as well to kind of scale and reach the absolute best talent for them, especially at the early career level, where every year you're interacting with sort of a new slate of candidates who need to be reached, contacted, and educated about your positions in a scalable way. And there are many really great companies out there that we've been able to help with our system who didn't necessarily have a massive campus operation, but do have a really great budding early career program. We'll talk a little bit about that. But sort of the essence of what our platform does is first we take really structured information from both sides about who they are and what they're looking for. So a candidate will tell us about their education, their experience, their skill set, as well as a lot of really rich information about their career goals, their preferences, and what they're looking for in their search. And on the other side, from employers, will get a sense of who their ideal candidate is, as well as aspects of where they're hiring and also where they really need to improve representation in their job as well. And having this really structured data, as well as using AI to connect the dots, is really what underlines our sort of ability to deliver for our partners. And the sort of really first aha moment that we had was we realized back in around 2018 that we were able to match using this data at an equivalent level to sort of human level performance. So we were having the matches we were presenting to recruiters, we're getting to the interview process and getting hired at the same rate as what agency recruiters are able to provide by manually reviewing job descriptions, profiles of candidates, and pairing them together. And that was really exciting, especially for early career, where there's really large scale of hiring and where you can't have an agency recruiter, essentially hiring your large hiring class. It's also an area where, as a college student who's looking for work, you don't have the sort of resources to pay someone to find these opportunities for you. But we realized that a scalable system would be able to provide that kind of service to a candidate of finding the best opportunity for them and bring it to them. And then on the recruiter side of finding the absolute best candidates, no matter where they are. And so that's sort of the underpinnings of where we are today. And whenever we're talking about AI and hiring, it's really important to speak to vendors who've been really thoughtful from the beginning about how they're approaching sort of bias, equity, as well as kind of legal and compliance side. And this is an area where we've really been able to lead from the beginning. It's been a real strength for us for a few reasons. One, we were actually fortunate to be based out of New York, which was a really early mover in terms of AI legislation, specifically in the hiring space, and sort of pioneered some legislation that has led to the third-party publication of audits, which are now kind of standard practice in our industry. And this is something that we've been able to build with from the ground up from the beginning of sort of our early product decisions, which is really, really critical and has helped us form a really strong relationship with our auditors and actually help them advise other companies on how best to make sure you are consistently publishing results showing that your system, if you are applying AI and hiring at all, is not having any kind of a negative disparate impact on underrepresented groups, which is really, really critical. A few aspects of that as well. One of the things I want to mention here is really critical that our technology aims to enhance and empower human decision making. So there are two critical aspects of that is one, recruiters always make the final decision about who they're actually interviewing, who they're bringing into the hiring process. We make it as easy as possible for a recruiter to get to that right candidate and make that decision, but we empower rather than kind of removing that decision-making power. And in addition to that, recruiters always have the ability to describe what makes a candidate great and also update that kind of criteria. So it's something that's really in your hands and it's not a black box algorithm that searches the sort of historical data of everyone who's worked in a particular field and produces similar results, which has been the kind of approach that has led to really negative outcomes in the past. And because we've always been really focused on expanding access to opportunity and especially equity and diversity since our sort of beginning as a tool, this is something that we're really, really passionate about, and always happy to speak to more if this is something you have questions on too. So the key aspect of why it is really impactful to be able to apply AI to sourcing talent is that fundamentally the aspect of initially identifying an opportunity as a candidate or identifying the right candidate as a recruiter is really a data problem. Until you get to the point of a real human conversation, there's just this massive sort of challenge of, if you're a recruiter, it's very hard for you to search the entire universe of possible candidates, review every profile manually, understand who's the absolute best fit, and then contact them at scale in a way that delivers a personalized message that really resonates with their interests, their qualifications, sells their role to them. The sort of stuff that you can really excel at as a recruiter in a sort of a human interaction on a one-to-one basis. It's very hard to do when you have millions of college students graduating. You need to search all of their data and get to the absolute best ones. And on the candidate side, especially for candidates in their first ever job search, it's very challenging to search the entire universe of potential companies, potential career paths, job postings. In many cases, we find that college students, even college students at universities that are really well known and who have really strong backgrounds from those schools and are really well suited to many roles in our platform, they struggle to understand job descriptions. It's their first job search. They don't necessarily understand job titles that exist in the industries they're looking into, or even what industry they should be approaching. And so this kind of large data problem is exactly what AI is really well positioned to tackle in a way that has a few really substantial advantages compared to trying to perform this manually. In addition to the fact that it's scalable, one is we're able to use an incredible quantity of data on either side, and two, we're able to apply sort of objective and unbiased decision making and scale that as well. And then just absolutely reaching the right talent at scale is the last thing that I would want to touch on here. It's very, even a highly productive individual recruiter can only do so much outreach and only can have so much reach, whereas a system like this can put your positions and your company's brand in front of the right qualified talent at schools anywhere in the country. And that's something that's really powerful for our partners today. So as we sort of built out our initial sort of matching engine, we found that we were able to really effectively identify the right candidate for a job and the right job for a candidate. We sort of immediately went to partners in the early career space and wanted to understand how can this technology like really impact the way that you're kind of pursuing your goals. And sourcing was definitely where we started and kind of our foundation as a tool, both on the candidate side in terms of building a feed for candidates where they can go have opportunity brought to them and have an incredible success rate, 20 times higher than what they're getting in job boards today. And then on the recruiter side, using that technology has really helped sort of disrupt the status quo of how teams outsource. So a typical team before implementing Ripple Match usually has a really substantial investment in terms of both budget and time in legacy platforms where they're sending essentially like mass emails based on filters at scale. When they often, if they're doing a really good job, we hear from our partners they're getting around a 5% response rate from those candidates on those platforms. And that's with a really effective tailored messaging and targeting a pool really, really well. So a lot of work going into that and a really tough response rate. And then the other side, as they do that outreach, they're also getting overwhelmed by like a really high volume of noise and unqualified applications as well. And the kind of shift that we were able to implement for partners like Grace and her team at Palo Alto was by using our system to only contact qualified candidates and start with the absolute best fit candidates first, and then pre-confirm their interest before presenting them to the recruiter. That means that our teams like Palo Alto's early career recruiting team can get a feed of candidates who are already interested and already qualified for their positions and who are 20 times more likely to be qualified than their inbound applicant pool from their job board sources. This is a really, really big impact on their ability to, one, sort of scale back on their budget and time on manual tools, which is really impactful for their team. And then also it means they have a single source where they know they're getting really, really high quality of candidates so they can really focus on forming connections with those candidates in the human side of recruiting as well. Another aspect of this that I think has become especially challenging for a lot of early career teams in the last kind of year and a half is the sort of challenge of inbound application volume and the sort of perils of many as a sort of the flip side of candidates completing hundreds of applications in their job search, many of them powered by AI, is that if you are a company like eBay's early career program here, that has developed, a strong brand and a really good early career program that's really desirable, you have an incredible volume of applications. So they had 20,000 candidates applying in a full season. I think it's actually gone up this year pretty substantially. We're seeing doubling and tripling of applicant volume for a lot of our partners already, sort of as this comparing the last, first few weeks of September compared to previous seasons. And that means that's a real challenge for candidate experience in terms of actually making sure you're getting back to everyone, safeguarding your brand, and also getting the absolute best quality of those applicants in that inbound pool. And this is something that a lot of our partners really care about. They want to have that open door so that any qualified candidate can present themselves for these positions. But if it's impossible to actually review everyone in your inbound, you just simply don't have that open door to opportunity. Whereas using our AI platform, eBay, for example, was able to do a few things that they were really excited about. One, they reduced the actual time they were spending on resume review by 70%, which was really huge for a lean team during busy season. And they were also able to improve their response time pretty enormously. So we see typical industry average is close to 3 weeks, and many candidates just never hear back. Whereas we see on our platform, we have around 5 to 6 day average in terms of response time, which, as Kate mentioned, is in line with the kind of expectations that candidates have as well. But then in addition to sort of speed and time savings, I think that assurance that you're getting to the absolute best fits in that massive applicant pool and that you're hiring kind of the best of the best for your program is something that's been, really impactful for eBay and Cindy's team as well. So after the sort of sourcing and resume review, another area where we found sort of real potential of that kind of matching technology is in sort of pairing sort of AI with your in-person and virtual events strategy as well. So you definitely see there's a lot of challenges with the way that campus teams have traditionally pursued events historically. One is they're often can be very expensive. The ROI can be really unpredictable and also challenging to measure. And in addition to that, there's just a lot of administrative work that can get in the way of actually making sure that you're reaching the right audience for your events and that the candidates who actually attended are getting brought into your interview process consistently at scale into the right positions. And our system can help with a few areas here. One is using the same matching technology that we use to automate sourcing. We can also spread the word about your events to candidates who are qualified for your jobs automatically in a way that doesn't take any sort of additional effort from your team, and make sure that when you show up to that event, sort of magically have attendees who meet the qualifications for the roles that you want to speak to in that event, and also just sort of spreads the word really, really effectively about your company and that particular event and why those attendees should attend. And then follow-up. So being able to, for every RSVP and every attendee, capture really great data on who they are and what they're looking for through our platform. We're also able to match them with the best fit opportunity at your company in a way that's sort of automated and seamless and is really challenging for people to do manually, and has helped a lot of our partners kind of get rid of the kind of resume stack that they've had historically and move towards a really effective automated system that lets them, make the absolute most of their events as well. And the last thing I'll speak to is building pipelines for the future. So we've learned through speaking with partners in campus recruiting that they have this really untapped potential of all the candidates they've met historically over the years or over previous hiring seasons, or the data that they have either in their ATS or scattered on different spreadsheets about people they've met at conferences, people they've interacted with on campus, or candidates who've applied in a previous hiring season who are sort of in the silver medalist category, but you'd love to re-engage for your sort of full-time roles if they were an intern candidate in the past. And making that sort of data that our partners were not able to make the most of previously, and making that something that's sort of the pipeline that you use to start your season is something that's been really, really impactful for partners like UKG as well. So they're able to really easily get all of the potential internship candidates for their programs from every sort of webinar and event that they host over the course of a season and previous hiring seasons, and then use our technology to create a pipeline that segmenting candidates based on which of their positions are a great fit for, and then automatically reaching out to them as well with sort of personalized communication and multi-step campaigns that follow up, encouraging a candidate to better engage with your company and apply to the right position for them as well. It's kind of an overview of the sort of areas where we've applied AI for our partners to improve outcomes for their campus programs as a whole. And just the one thing I'd emphasize here is what we've seen from our partners is it's not so much you're using AI as a tool in a couple of different areas. It's that you're really implementing your entire program in a really fundamentally different way. And the key kind of elements of this is one, you're able to extend your team. So as Kate mentioned, sort of saving time and operational costs is really critical to how our partners think about where AI can help them and sort of expanding your reach as well. So the automation of sourcing and outreach and app review definitely has a huge impact in the quality of talent you're able to reach, especially with a lean team, as well as letting your sort of team automate as much of the manual tasks as possible so they can focus on that kind of human connection as well. And then in terms of the engagement side, I'll just emphasize as well, you spoke a little bit to how our tool was applied on the events management side, as well as building a future pipeline here too. And this last thing we'll note here, we are, as I mentioned, really passionate about how AI should be applied in hiring in general, especially in ways that are both compliant with legislation and also are sort of the most ethical application possible. And we definitely recommend wherever you're looking in your hiring stack, when you're looking at vendors, to make sure that these are vendors that where they were AI native from the beginning and have been thinking really deeply about how best to use AI and how to use it ethically and safely from sort of their inception as a company. And they should, at the very least, you should expect to see third-party audits that are successful as well as sort of a deep commitment to this in the space. We also really recommend focusing on sort of fundamental capabilities, steps in the process where you see the sort of potential for really meaningful impact on efficiency and time savings. And then the other sort of real benefit that we see for a lot of our partners is the ability to focus the recruiting time on, I think, what many recruiters get into this sort of position for and seek this career out, which is being able to connect with people and having as much of that kind of manual aspects of the work and administrative work be what AI is taking over as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. There's just a couple questions that have come in that I'd love to pose to you. The first one I see is, how can I convince leadership to adopt new technology if they're skeptical?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think there's a couple of different aspects of this, and we have seen with the new partners we brought on, there's been definitely a mentality shift among sort of leadership, either in TA outside of early career or in more executive leadership outside of TA, to understanding that AI is definitely going to transform the way we work across the board. And so there's more and more openness to kind of exploring and understanding like this is something that I should look at and consider what my AI strategy is for recruiting and for my campus program in particular. And typically we find there's a couple things that are really key in addition to that sort of initial interest to sort of convincing your leaders this is something to explore deeper. The first is, connecting to your ultimate goals and how this can really help you furthering typically hiring the best candidates for you, expanding your reach and diversity, and really leading as a sort of cutting edge program while typically having a leaner operation. Those typically tend to be the things that resonate a lot with kind of executive leadership as well. And then the cost efficiency of an AI platform compared to scaling a team or a program is also something that can really, really resonate. And allows a sort of lean team to accomplish a ton and also make sure you're focusing your sort of talent and budget as effectively as possible.
Great, thanks. This question asks, how is your platform using AI in a beneficial way for students?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So there are a couple sort of major pain points that we heard from college students as we started building our platform. One is simply just finding opportunity is very challenging and very tedious on traditional platforms. So the typical college student will spend countless hours when they're looking for those 200 plus applications they're going to submit, just searching job boards, finding postings, trying to understand which one is a great fit for them. So our first kind of aspect of how we change that for them is that we create a feed that I've heard a couple college students describe as like TikTok for jobs or TikTok but productive, that brings that opportunity to them, which is both a huge time saver It's much more effective because our system can scan jobs at a scale it's not possible for a person and give you the absolute best fit for you immediately. It also aligns with sort of the new generation's expectations, where they're used to recommendation engines across from social media to stuff like Netflix, and it's not surprising to them to have a system that can like learn their preferences really effectively and serve them the right content. And then the second is sort of success rate. So typical job application on a job board has around a 2% chance in resulting in an interview. And much of the time, candidates unfortunately are applying to jobs that are not actually active, or jobs that are just not a great fit for their qualifications, because it's very hard for them to navigate and understand sort of the landscape of jobs boards as it is. And then many of those are kind of stale postings as well. So our success rate being around 1 in 2, so 20 times better than that, is a huge advantage for candidates. And then the third is sort of response time. So because our partners respond around 2 weeks faster than industry average, that's something that really delights candidates and makes them feel like it's a really radically different experience they're getting compared to typically waiting 3 weeks or longer. And often on other platforms, they're simply never hearing back at all. And with the number one complaint we hear from candidates is, even if it's a no, I'd much rather hear something than never hear back after the effort I put into sort of researching your company and submitting my application.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think that kind of attacks the problem we see of candidates submitting hundreds of applications because they aren't hearing back. So they think they need to keep, feeding the job application machine. So I think it's a great example of how our technology is trying to attack more of the root of the problem by showing them jobs they're qualified for, increasing those response rates rather than encouraging that behavior of, submitting 100 applications as kind of a starting point. So I think that's a great point. All right, looks like that's all the questions that we have today. So, thank you so much everyone for tuning in, just sharing your questions, your thoughts as well. So I'll hand it back to the NACE team to close things out, but thank you so much everyone, and hope to see you at future events.
So thanks, everyone.